It is good to remind ourselves every day that our soul is divine. In fact, we should say this to ourselves. My soul is divine, and then I am one with my soul. My soul is divine, I am one with my soul. So why not just say, I am divine? There's so much that we identify with that is not who we truly are, our soul. Our likes and dislikes, our cravings and aversions. We might like a certain band or a particular artist, and we won't like that exact same thing in another life, but there's a reason behind why we like certain artists or certain bands. It's almost like a finger pointing at a finger pointing at our soul. There's hints in the nature of our soul in what we like or even what we dislike, but just hints. It is not a pure reflection of our soul. And until we are truly one with our soul, and we're not identified with this one body, this one person, and our likes and dislikes, until that point, we should be careful on calling ourselves divine, because we're kind of divinizing what we're still attached to. And since we're still attached, it's those attachments and the corporeal nature of those attachments are not divine. But we should always remind ourselves, once again, my soul is divine, I am one with my soul. So I am one with my soul reminds you that you are an extension of your soul, and that behind everything is your soul. Behind all the layers, behind the gross physical body, behind even the astral, behind even the causal is the soul. Untouched, can't be burned, can't be wet, can't be hurt. It is pure consciousness, and it is purely divine, a piece of the source. Now, what are some gods? And why is it important to find a god? And if you can't find a god that you like, to make your own, as Sadhguru said. It's not necessarily which God that you choose to work with, if you want to call it that, or to worship, or to follow, or to admire, or to use as a role model. It's not as important which one it is, because, for instance, there's a whole bunch of different interpretations of Loki or Odin, and they're both pretty great. There's a lot of people that dislike Loki, for instance, and view him as chaotic and as a hindrance to everyone else here. And there's other ones that see him as a playful deity, one that is an impetus for change and evolution. And if we didn't have him, nothing would really happen. Everything would stagnate. If we didn't have chaotic forces like that, if we didn't have a figure to kind of create conflict, then we wouldn't evolve. I tend to not really identify with Loki that much, more so Odin. Odin's very gray. Loki still, to me, is very much more conflict oriented and can't really be trusted. But there's a whole bunch of different interpretations of gods. And there's a whole bunch of different relationships with gods as a result. All different kinds of relationships. My Odin might not be your Odin. My Ma Kali might not be your Ma Kali. And what that means is that my relationship to my god or goddess, Ma Kali will always be my first and foremost, but my relationship is a particular path, is a very unique path, is its own gateway to that god or goddess. Now, the reason why, if we can't find a god that we like, we create one or make one up, is because gods and goddesses are a gateway as much as anything else. So they have individual personalities and existence, they exist. But just like so many relationships with people in our life, our relationships with gods are one of opening one door and then another door and another door. It's almost like we travel through that god or goddess as we're working with them, as we're worshiping them, as we're attuning our consciousness to them. They become the gateway that we travel down. And if it's a positive relationship, then it is one of growth. It is one of becoming. It is one of not assuming that they have to open the door for you, but being appreciative that they are, and that they are being that gateway to yourself, really, to your own soul, to realizing yourself. There are certain gods and goddesses that are more stations than beings. They're just as much gateways, but some Indra, for instance, or Vayu or Agni, there's many different souls that take that station of an Indra and travel through that station. Now, to me, a goddess, Ma Kali, is so much bigger, so much more intrinsic to the nature of consciousness, soul, matter, and the multiverse, that is a gateway and a passage and a being that has always been open since the beginning. And it's not so much that she has changed any, but that our relationship to her changes as we realize ourselves, or as the various ages progress or degress. But I'm still haven't made up my mind about Odin. He might be a station as well. I think not, but maybe he might be a station. Just as much a gateway, though. And it doesn't really matter if it's a god or a goddess that's at a station that multiple souls have been there, or if it's something more intrinsic to everything like Ma Kali. The relationship is what matters. When you worship something, when you work with something, if you want to say that, you're opening your heart to be vulnerable to that power. At least if you're doing it right, at least if you're actually progressing, you have to be vulnerable to that source of power, that god or goddess. You have to open your heart and be vulnerable in true devotion, in true bhakti, and that's how you progress. But in opening your heart, you become, while you're connected to that god or goddess, you become more of yourself, no matter which god or goddess got you to truly become vulnerable and truly open your heart in true devotion. No matter which god or goddess you did that in relation to, your heart is still open, and it is still more powerful as a result. Because in society, we kind of learn to place barriers around our heart, place barriers around our true intellect even. And in Jnana Yoga, or knowledge yoga and wisdom yoga, in Jnana Yoga, it is about learning and perfecting the intellect. And you can't do that as well unless you also have a relationship to a god or a goddess. Because there are certain locks on our intellect and our knowledge and our understanding that can only be opened by something that's a little bit vaster than us, at least a little bit vaster, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more understanding, and a little bit more focused on us, not from a place like we are biased, but unbiased, looking down on our lives like as observing a flat circle. You need something to unlock the intellect, unlock knowledge, but only you can unlock your heart, but only you could do that in relationship, into a true devotional relationship with a god or a goddess. But these are all hints at relationships and how that helps you with different paths and different yogas and different ways of relating to the gods and goddesses. So if we're talking about Raja Yoga, control of the mind, mastery of the mind, specifically through meditation, I meditate, but all kinds of ways of controlling the mind. Now this one is also in our hands and also kind of in the hands of the gods. So to truly control our mind, we might need a little help from time to time to truly master ourselves and master our emotions, master our anger or our attraction, to identify with something higher, and through the mastery of the mind, to train the flesh to identify with something higher, so that the flesh doesn't crave flesh, so that your desire to become yourself, to become one with your soul, and to reach enlightenment doesn't go into suicidalness or depression or something like that. Because if we're very isolated and very lonely and we don't have that kind of relationship, everything can kind of get confused and balled up. And the desire for suicide and even depression is a misplaced desire for enlightenment or moksha, liberation. It's the correct desire, but in the wrong direction. But with a god or a goddess, in those times you can reach out. But with Raja Yoga and controlling the mind, you're going to need a little bit extra help. And you're going to need help truly devising what is a motivation within you that comes from something higher, rather than something that comes from ego or from a deep-seated emotion or some kind of trauma. You might need a little help from time to time. You might need guidance, even controlling your own mind. Once again, you have to do all of these things, but that relationship can help you. And that relationship with a god or goddess are gateways into higher realizations of self and higher mastery and all these different kinds of yoga, whether it be bhakti, devotional yoga, jnana yoga, knowledge yoga, raja yoga, mental control, mind yoga, or any other kind of yoga, even physical yoga, hatha yoga. You might need a little bit of help there, maybe from Hanuman. And whatever kind of place that you start your individualized path on, or spiritual interests on, you'll find that eventually you'll find a god or a goddess you realize have been guiding you all along, and maybe you didn't even know them for most of your path. But they could see that you would come to them. And then once you finally did, you realize that they'd been guiding you all along. So it's good to remind ourselves that, specifically, my soul is divine. I am one with my soul. Remind yourself of both those things throughout the day. And even though that might seem very individualized, you'll find that the closer that you get to your soul, you'll find a god or a goddess along the way, and you'll realize that they were guiding you all along, and that they truly made you realize your divinity within. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting. Hit that like button down there if you like this video at all. Feel free to leave a comment. That also helps the channel. And feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.